Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson Shardcast. We're a bunch of mega fins giving you the news, discussion, and of course a lot of opinions about Brandon Sanderson and the Cosmere and sharks. I'm Benny, the happy shark, and joining me is Evgeni. Hi, Evgeni. What do you think about sharks? Also joining us is Grace. What do you think about sharks?
For this episode, it's pronounced Gracie.
Why'd you go die?
Legit, actually.
But I am the gator girl on the forums.
Ah, you like gators rather than sharks, huh?
Sure.
Also joining us is Marvin.
I was not ready for this. Hi, I'm Paleo.
And lastly, joining us is Joshua.
I think that's Paleo. I'm jofwu.
Oh God, no.
Well, that
here.
depends on which Aeon he uses.
Yeah.
And
In fact, no, it has to be Paleo. Because
Paleo.
hey,
Paleo.
guys, shut up! We're gonna talk about Swordishman shark fighting. That's what we're gonna talk about today. It's like, hey, wait, no, we're not, Benny. We're gonna be talking about the history of Cell. What are you talking about? Go back to your spot. And I'm Chaos. Hey, what's up?
I think you mean Chaos.
No, I definitely don't.
This is
God,
gonna
I hate
happen the entire
I hate this
episode.
episode already. So
it's really close enough, though. Just embrace the Aeon.
no, I will not. I will not do that. I will not do that at all. Never. I will not embrace aeons. No,
Well, Aeons will embrace you.
no, they definitely won't.
You're not even saying that properly. You have to first be
Aeons?
aeons.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not going to. And the comments will be very frustrated about the whole
I'm talking
thing.
to Evgeni, who is saying that they will embrace you, but is also saying them improperly.
That's because I don't know how to language.
Great, me either. So that works out great.
In my head, I'm saying the thing that I know I should be saying.
Cool.
But I guess I'm just not good enough with my tongue.
That's true. So let's talk about not sharks, but we will briefly talk about sharks. Very briefly. But I had that bit, so, you know. I don't think I did the Benny the Happy Shark voice particularly well, I must say. Anyway, we're going to talk about the history and cultures of Cell. So, you know, and one such culture has shark fighting in Svordin. That's true.
It's a thing. We promise.
Yeah, it's true.
It's totally relevant.
It's super relevant. It's super relevant. So, let's talk about Cell. So, tell us about some early Cell history here.
So the history starts with devotion and dominion coming from Yolin to Cell.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Cell is a natural world that presumably existed before the Shattering.
Like most planets.
Maybe it had people, maybe it didn't. It probably did.
Yep.
And then the D&D came and crashed the place.
Yeah, and then presumably devotion helped make Elantris in some way.
The history is very unclear to me because of the way that Chris's Arcanum Unbounded essay talks about their relationship with the humans. It suggests that they're really involved with humans, but it also feels like they were shattered long before the humans,
The modern
really took off.
humans. Yeah.
So I never really have been clear on the timeline there.
Let's look at that essay.
Let's look at that essay.
The planet is bigger
It's pretty big.
than the Cosmere standard. It is
Yep.
1.5 Cosmere standard,
Wow.
which we kind of generally assume to be Earth-sized. Because Scadrio is about 1 and Scadrio is about Earth. So gravity of 1.2 Cosmere standard as opposed to Rashar, which is 0.7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I wonder if everyone on Cell is like 20% shorter on average.
They just have stronger bones, am I right?
That is probably true, actually.
Especially those Dakar, am I right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they're so strong.
If you were a Dakar monk, well, on Roshar you wouldn't have powers, but if your bones were too brittle or whatever, well, I mean, I guess they're not like physically carving them; they're just using magic. Okay, never mind.
These shards were extremely influential in the development of human societies on the planet, and most of their traditions and religions can be traced back to these two. Mm-hmm. Uniquely, the very languages and alphabets used today across the planet were directly influenced by the two shards.
But early on, the shards took an unconcerned approach to humankind.
Yeah, as you do, I guess.
So they were highly influential, but also like unconcerned.
So I think that maybe like, so the shards come in, they just like hang out on top of a mountain or something, and the humans start noticing things, noticing changes in the environment. They start imitating the shards. They try emulating them, worshipping them, things like that. So gods, but in different gods, which doesn't stop humans from worshipping them.
Oh, see, it's just that the traditions and religions were influenced by them. That doesn't mean like they were, that the shards actually
were involved in.
Right, yeah, right. Like they were splintered, and then like the door and those latent ideas kind of came forward from those, and that influence was pervasive in everything, right, with the door and how the magic and stuff works. So I think that makes more sense.
But then the weird thing is then at some point in the distant past, both devotion and dominion were destroyed. So it's like that was also in the distant past. So
right. Well, I'm saying that the destruction,
past, they weren't concerned, but that they were influential, but then they were destroyed.
Well, I more think that their destruction was influential, and because that power was ripped and stuff, the way you're accessing the door is shaping all the languages, which really is coming from the shards, right?
So you think that when she says that the shards were influential, she's talking about after they were shattered?
I mean, if you came to Cell and you were saying, what's happening with the languages? Obviously, the door and things like that are they very much come from this idea of the land mattering, right? I don't know how that affects the language, but like the writing in Aelan certainly fits that.
I mean, yeah, right. So in Aelan, we have aeons which in their core mimic the geography of the land.
Right.
Which land then has a connection with the door.
Mm-hmm. So like I just think it's like related to all of this and the cognitive realmness, and they kind of talk about the language a little later. In addition, the rules of perception and intent are greatly magnified on Cell to the point that language directly shapes the magic. So I think it's related to the magic that like if you didn't have any of this, then things would have developed totally differently, right?
That makes sense, but so the shape of aeons come from geography, and like presumably that comes from the door being in the cognitive realm and attached to the land, right? Yeah. But like how because isn't there weird stuff with Elantris, the city?
Maybe the power at
weird.
Yeah, maybe the power associated with the alpha or the aeons comes from the door, like when it is in the cognitive realm, but the symbols themselves predate even that. Devotion and dominion, I don't know already, because like you said early on, the people already discovered the powers that permeated the landscape. Like
it suggests that the landscape mattered before the door was.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I believe that early on, the shards took an unconcerned approach to humankind, and society was shaped by the slow, steady discovery of the powers that permeated the landscape. But it also just says, in the distant past, they were destroyed. So
I wonder if when Devotion and Dominion arrived on, I was going to say on Roshar, on Cell, if they set up either intentionally or not some kind of a magic system where the land did matter to an extent. And so that was and so when they were later on splintered and their power shoved into the cognitive, that just magnified in an extreme way some things that were already there. Do we think, and I imagine we're going to talk about this some more later, but do we think Elantris existed before Devotion and Dominion arrived, or was it constructed after?
Ooh, that's a tricky question.
They arrived? I think after they arrived.
I think it has to be after,
It has to be
right?
after
Yeah.
they
But
arrived.
before they
Because
were
you need the magic.
splintered.
Splintered. Were you talking about before they're
Yeah.
splintered?
No. I was talking about the arrival.
Oh, yeah. No, I think
And
it's definitely
so-
after.
And so I think that the original Elantrians may have built Elantris to kind of amplify this very low level kind of latent magic in the land that was delivered, that was brought by Devotion and Dominion. And so the city did, I imagine, a lot of what it currently does, which is kind of act as an amplifier of the Aerolene magic. But back in the day, that background kind of magic was so low, you needed something like Elantris to accomplish, reasonable effects. Otherwise, your Aeon for light would be like a matchstick.
And then after it was all splintered, then the amplifier really was like turned up to 11, and then you saw really much more dramatic effects.
There was a lot more to amplify.
I feel like that kind of has to be the case, because how would you know how to build the symbol to amplify it? And there is this idea that Elantris was discovered
Mhm.
by the first Elantrian king Reoshem. They found Elantris, and it was just built. At least the base shape.
Yeah.
And then, like, his daughter was the first one taken by the Teod.
And so I think the OG Elantrians were like way before, like the people who actually built that thing. And then for some reason abandoned it or were whatever. And then
that's
later
weird.
comes Reoshem and kind of restarts the thing.
It's weird to me that his daughter was able to be taken so quickly. Because isn't it, like, in modern times, only people who are, like, from Arlon or Teod can be taken? So, like, they had just arrived. Like, I'm pretty sure that's right, but it just seems weird
No,
compared to,
I think
like,
I'm a little wrong.
I was just reading it myself. It sounded right what you said.
The wiki says people, like the next generation of people, like within a few years or a few decades, people started getting taken by the Teod.
No, it was
I see
it
what you're
was
saying, I
first.
see.
The princess was the first in Reoshem's line to be chosen as Elantrian. So it's his descendant, but not his daughter. So it did take a while, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what you'd expect.
So
Makes
probably after, like, a generation of people being born in that
A
area.
few generations, yeah.
I'd be
Just
okay
take
with
it
the
slow.
second one, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter all that much. But yeah, that's how I think the very early development went. There was no magic, or at least no significant magic on sale, and then the shards come, and now you have this low-key kind of background magic permeating the land, and you can do things. So you can draw, the coastline and the mountain and the lake. That's Aeon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you some access, either access to investiture or maybe gives you a key to maybe doing things, or gives you a connection or something. But like, it has an actual real realmatic effect. And then some people, either with the help of devotion or not, I don't think we have a confirmation either way, construct the city of Elantris to kind of amp up this background and allow them to do more impressive things. And then something happens to them at some point.
They were the Irie and they just decided to take off.
Honestly, it's possible. Although I think the Irie are more recent than that.
Yeah, I agree.
But they go away. Devotion and Dominion get splintered. Reoshem and his people settle around the city. And then they start getting getting the Teod,
I mean,
and turning into like modern Elantrians.
Like, and the Ivory have to be more recent because they swear by Domi, and so that's relatively recent. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Maybe-
shoe things.
Maybe they were just like killed somehow in the conflict between Odium and like Devotion and Dominion.
It's possible.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe like the flood of power, just like what we see might have, or Radon thinks might happen to him. Like the surge of power just destroyed them.
Oh,
like,
it could have
there was
vaporized them.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot because they wouldn't. Things very dramatically changed. The only problem with that whole thing, Evgeni, is just the idea that drawing the Aeon, would it have an effect? Because right now you have to be taken by the Teod to draw an Aeon, right? And for it to actually do something. So
Well, so it would have had to be before the Teod was a thing, though, is what I would imagine,
right.
So there was some totally different system of being initiated.
Yeah, a lot of things were very different, so it's hard to say exactly what happened.
Like, imagine how confused those early cartographers would have been if, like, just anyone drawing the shape of the country caused an effect. Darn it, why do my maps keep bursting into flame?
But I mean, I think that's reasonably solid, but I just wonder how much time they were there before they were destroyed, like Devotion and Dominion.
Thousands of years.
Who knows?
I guess. I was like,
do we know?
Desolations happened for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that Yolen obviously is the first, then White Sand, then Elantris, and then
Brandon
we
said
have
the scale of the Cosmere is like 10,000 years. The
Yeah.
timeline is roughly 10,000 years or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's on the order of thousands.
And Odium has been engaged on Roshar for, I'd say, at least 4.5 since the last desolation, and then maybe another
three or
Those
four.
are Roshanrias, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about the same. I mean, on this order of magnitude, it's basically the same thing.
True.
So call it 7,000 years of Odium. Wow. Wow.
Maybe the fused are like, yay, 7,000 years in the system. Happy birthday, Odium. Hey.
Tanavas did a damn good job, though. Like,
yeah.
over the course of about 3,000 years, Odium goes and fails to find ambition, succeeds in finding devotion and dominion, splinters them, finds ambition, splinters him, her, them, her.
I think. Yeah, she.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. Uda's female. Yeah.
And then it goes and gets stuck on Roshar. Like,
Roshar was in a prolonged conflict.
he would have wreaked a lot more chaos in the Cosmere if Honor hadn't gotten him. The cultivation, I assume.
So to me, that doesn't leave a lot of time for the really early history stuff to happen here.
Yeah.
Right. And so the other thing is, everything before, because like Roshar is essentially Era 2, so everything before Era 2, Mistborn Era 2 that is, needs to take place in like 3,000 years. Which is, we have at least several hundred years of Elantrian history, of like devotion and dominion and Door Elantris history. We have several hundred of Warbreaker, although they're not necessarily like back to back.
No.
We also have, Scadrial.
Well, there's multiple Well of Ascension cycles.
Yes.
So.
And if each one is 1,000 years, then multiple means 3.
Well, I mean, the last desolation gives you a while, so like you got 4,000 years.
Oh yeah,
right?
I guess, yeah.
So we got 7,000 years for these things to happen. So, but regardless,
7 heroes.
I don't think Devotion and Dominion were there for more than 1,000 years before dying. Like that. That's kind of what I feel like.
That seems reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in my super rough guesstimation, like upper bound 1,000 years, you know?
And 1,000 years seems short by Shardic standards, but it's still a fairly long time for like human societies to develop.
Especially when you have shards around.
Yeah.
You know, like shards can help a lot. Devotion and Dominion can be like, hey, here's this spaceship called Urithiru.
Yes. Yes, please. The rhythm of Urithiru, November 7th or whatever.
That's not the name of the book.
Shut up.
17th.
No, but it's interesting to me. Like 1,000 years in human history can have a very different meaning depending on when, like which 1,000 years you take. Because we've had, the last 1,000 years on Earth have been a technological explosion, right? Mm-hmm. We start pre-Middle Ages, and we go through the Middle Ages. We go through the Renaissance, the Baroque, the Industrial Revolution, and now the modern age.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you take like 2000 BC to 1000 BC, I don't think much happens technologically. Well,
from a technological standpoint, but like there's a lot that did happen.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like, I guess because I measure the development of a society by its technological advancement.
I don't think that's the only way you can measure society.
I would not be surprised if back then they got fairly advanced, and then the splintering and whatever war between Odium and Dominion and Devotion happened, basically caused a desolation type apocalyptic event for the humans.
Like your civilization's crushed.
Yeah, like that set them back
a lot.
In the essay, I think Chris even speculates that the power maybe was not immediately pushed into the cognitive realm. It might have been hanging out on the planet somewhere. Let me find it.
Yeah, I'm uncertain whether their power was left to ravage the world untamed for a time or was immediately contained. Presumably in the cognitive realm, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Oh, and it says, this all happened during the days of human prehistory on Cell, so...
So that really makes me feel like the influence that Chris is talking about is all post this, and it's just saying that the shard's power and the door are influencing all of this, right? Like, it's accurate to say that the door has influenced a crap load on Cell, right?
Yeah.
But I do agree with the idea that the city Elantris was probably constructed earlier on.
Yeah, it'd have to, right?
Pre-splintering, but post-arrival.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Oh, the power left to ravage the world untamed for a time. That would have sucked. Yeah. There's your desolation right there. It's just
Yeah,
the
door storm.
The door storm. It goes diagonally. Because it has a D in it, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about why Odium went after Devotion and Dominion.
Dominion doesn't surprise me because I would be afraid of someone who wants to dominate everything around him.
Yep.
Well, so the Brandon answer is first of all, because he failed to find ambition.
Right.
Which was his top target. But the Brandon answer is because what's the Brandon answer?
He goes after shards that he thinks the others won't care about, such as shards who go to the same planet and, according to some, break the pact they made not to interfere with each other.
He also goes after shards that he thinks are a good match for him, or a challenge or a danger. And I think Devotion is sort of a good match for him, because like he's the divine hatred and Devotion sort of is the divine love. So
Devotion and Honor are kind of like his enemies in like very similar ways, I feel like, you know?
In alignment, like Shardic alignment.
Yeah.
I would imagine also that he would not want someone like Devotion around because it would be someone who, inspires devotion and like can like
a strong emotion
opposition against him.
He claims all emotion, right? But in like love and devotion and stuff, and that you can kind of get that.
Devotion.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a pretty good reason to go after devotion. And obviously, Dominion, oh, great. We don't like that. But yeah, I do like that this swab came out post Oathbringer, and it's like, he can argue they're breaking the rules they set out.
Because killing other shards isn't.
Well, I don't know if they established rules on that.
Yeah. No oaths.
I mean, Endowment was fine with that.
Yeah. Ulada, good riddance. So
Endowment's going to be so great when we meet her.
yeah. It is crazy to think that Odium went to Cell and killed 2 shards. But I guess that was the first real Shardic death and the first really big conflict that we know of.
And I guess because we know it, or if we assume it happened so early on, it also makes sense that he was even capable of doing it, because like none of them were really that familiar with their powers yet. Like Sazed is still struggling after 300 years to really cope with his intents. Like,
Sazed is a bit of a special case.
But sure, yeah.
They weren't really comfortable with their powers, but they also, I don't know if they really. It's interesting to me that Odium didn't really know what he was doing in splintering the shards at the time, because we've learned that like each time he's like killing shards, he's kind of like learning how to do it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So to me, the fact that he didn't really know what he was doing in killing them just makes me think in general, I don't know that they really grasp like, can I be killed? What does that look like? How would that happen? Like they didn't even know any of these answers to these questions. So
maybe figured out how to kill the vessels and it's like, and what the hell do I do with the power? I have no idea. I didn't really like
literally sweep it under the rug.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't really know how that works until you do it, right?
And the rug is are the tectonic plates of
What else can we talk about early Celish history and the shards? What else do we want to talk about with the shards?
One thing that is interesting to me, and maybe that's not this early in the history, is the influence of the shards over the various nations or the various domains of Cell. Also, that is interesting to me is the third great domain of Cell, which we may or may not talk about as early history because presumably it existed.
Well, let's go through each place in just a sec.
Okay. Before, what do you guys think Aeona and Sky's relationship was like?
I think they were together.
You tell us.
I think they were together.
I know the common theory is that it was romantic, but I think that they were actually siblings.
Okay, the
because I feel like the like Arlon Fjordell like fight with the Dominion devotion, it just feels like sibling bickering to me. And I have this whole headcanon about their time on Yolan, but
tell us.
So my thought is their parents died at a young age, and so Sky was forced to become kind of a parental figure and take on a lot of responsibility and figure out ways to keep his sister safe, and became like a protective older brother. And then Aeona kind of saw the sacrifices he was making for her and became devoted to him, younger sibling, and loved him a lot. And so when the shattering happened, they were kind of a little bit codependent and decided to stay together and go to Cell.
Sure.
Works for me.
Yeah.
The kind of the romantic angle is already covered with cultivation and honor,
that's true. Yeah.
That is true.
I'm down for sibling relationship shards.
Yeah. Also,
no.
I apparently to Brandon, Sky is pronounced Skay for Skazy, which I refuse to do because that is stupid. I do not like that.
Spelled it better.
It really is. Yeah.
I try to follow Brandon's pronunciation in most things, but so I can meet him halfway on Skaze. But
don't skaze me, bro.
420 skaze it. So I recognize that it's Aeona and then Sions or Aeona. Well, no, I guess that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
I was gonna say from Aeona you get Sion, but then Like,
Aeona, you get Aeon Door.
yeah. So
See, it's
maybe,
funny. I pronounce Aeona, but I say Aeon. So,
See, I literally cannot hear a difference.
like I say Aeona,
It's
like you say Aeons, but I say
Okay.
Aeons.
Oh, okay. I kind of hear it.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to make this into pronunciation, but
Oh,
it's
it's going to
interesting.
get there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, I don't. To go back to the question, I don't know if I have even a headcanon on what their relationship was. Obviously, they had one. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to sell together. Presumably, they came together.
I'm gonna assume that they came
Yeah.
together.
I think that's reasonable. I don't know if we know that for a fact, but it's
No.
unlikely.
Otherwise, like, it wouldn't have been far between them, the two arriving, because like there isn't much
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So
Yeah. So one thing that was interesting to me was the influence of these shards on various cultures, because Aerilon is very like devotion centric
Yes, it is.
with Shukorath.
Shukorath. Yeah,
Yeah.
Shukorath and Shudareth are one's devotion-y and one's pretty dominion-y, which is kind of how we got all of the ideas of the shard names, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, Arelon is actually not the center of Shu Korath.
Yeah,
because
it's
they
Teod.
already worshipped the Elantrians. That was Teod.
Yes. Also true. But I mean, they're both Aeonic people.
yeah, I think only the pupil of Korath then moved to Teod because he thought the Elantrians were a bit influenced, or like
A bit.
the people were too.
It's interesting to me
the people were preoccupied. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that there seems to be a lot of influence that we can see around the cultures that are in the book Elantris.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Emperor's Soul, we're up at the Rose Empire, and then presumably there's some other third great empire. I'm curious if they have the same level of influence or if it's toned down more in those other locations.
Yeah, that's the thing I was gonna go into next, because we haven't seen a lot of the cultures of the Rose Empire, right? We
Right.
know a little bit about the empire itself. We know a little bit about Maipon or Maypon. We know a little bit about the Blood Sealers country with a weird name, and that's about it. But none of those seem particularly devotion-y or dominion. Like,
Yeah.
Shay obviously has insane amount of romantic knowledge, even like after having read Oathbringer, where we have Dalinar doing his thing. She knows so much, and yet very little of the shards seems to actually make its way into her culture and history.
Isn't it weird how... I mean, I would assume most places have a steady mix. Maybe it's just because in Elantris we have the Seons, which are like direct splinters of devotion. And in Fjorden, we have the Skazi, which we don't know specifically what they're doing, but Brandon said that they have a big stake in like the government and they've been doing a lot of stuff. And so I feel like that might be the simplest explanation. Like that's where the two splinters are. Like you get the splinters of devotion, you have the splinters of dominion, and that's just influencing those places a lot. Whereas most usual places, it's a mix.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be also in terms of influence, the fact that Cell does seem so prone to having these large empires take over could just be a byproduct of dominion in the first place, like, or devotion or whatever.
I think the three big domains, because that was also talked about in the essay, the three big domains, that's just Cell's so big. And so, like, Fjordan's like, yeah, we control the whole world, but the world's so big that we're just going to ignore the other two big domains. So it is kind of interesting in that sense.
I was curious earlier, so I looked it up. The 1.5 size scale or whatever gives you basically 2 times the surface area of Earth.
Yeah.
Right, because we're talking about radius, right, with the 1.5.
So the 1.5 radius gives you more than double the amount of, like, land
Land.
area as Earth.
Yeah.
Surface.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't know how much ocean there is versus.
Well, I was going to mention we keep making references to the 3 domains.
Yes,
on
let's
Cell,
talk about
and
the 3 domains.
If you either haven't read Arcanum Unbounded, or if you don't remember this one particular sentence in Chris's essay in there, which is literally the only place where that gets mentioned. Also, the Copper Mind. Read the Copper Mind.
It's pretty good. It's better every day. We work hard.
I try to make it worse every day, but it's more of them than there's.
You do work.
Don't tell him. So Chris talks about essentially 3 massive, like, great empires that pretty much all of Cell's people fall under, and we have Cycla or Cycla, where all of the action in Elantris takes place, and most of the places in Elantris are in. So the country of Aerolon is there. The entire Fjordell Empire is in there, which I'm sure at some point in this video we're going to have a map on the screen.
Oh yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a good
this is
idea.
probably a good time.
This is probably a good time.
But yeah, so if you look at the map, this thing on the left, the tiny Aerolon is where all of the action in Elantris, well, technically all of the action in Elantris takes place in like one city. And then the rest of Cycla is the Fjordell Empire.
Mhm.
And then we have another domain, which is the thing up north, where we have the Rose Empire, appropriately named Rose Barbarians ? By the Fjordell cartographers.
Mhm.
Teod is there.
Mhm.
And so I guess Teod is technically part of that domain.
Yeah, it's interesting because the map is like, oh, this is Cycla, right? But it like has this whole like northern continent here, right? And it's like labeled as if this is part of Cycla, right?
Yeah, but the way Brandon talks about it, he says there is the Europe-ish domain, there is the Asian-ish domain, and then there is one more. And it's like, well, you can make some pretty good guesses about what that is.
So I think Teod, like the Rose Empire is not on this map, but I think that there's just some Rose Empire influence. Like it's north on that map, like way further is the Rose Empire, right? And there's just like, there's a little bit of Rose Empire like near there with those barbarians, right? It's so far away from the Rose Empire.
So I believe, I don't know if it's in Elantris or the Emperor's Soul, but I saw a reference on the wiki that technically the Rose Empire maintains a pass or guards a pass to Teod.
Yeah.
And so like that has to be the empire there.
Mhm.
Or at least that has to be part of,
Mhm.
I think
of that empire.
It's one of the provinces that's maybe not, which is further or more remote part of the empire.
Oh yeah,
like
I guess that would make sense. Yeah.
and, like,
Yeah, I would say it's very
they're
remote.
more barbaric because they're not like too close to the cultural center of it, and like they might appear more barbaric to the.
Or they just label them as barbarians
Yeah,
because they're
of
not
course.
of the same culture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they don't look the
yeah.
same, so they're barbarians.
That's what I would assume, yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, so we have these two. And then there's the third great domain, which we've talked about in the past. But a good assumption is that it may be more African inspired.
Mhm.
It could be either like North American or South American in some way. But we think that a lot of that culture will get explored in the sequel to the Rhythmatist. And so, yes, Rhythmatist is not Cosmere, etc., but like Brandon likes to explore. And so it seems unlikely to a lot of us that he will do like a Native American, whether it's North or South, in one book and then into another.
and we don't
sort of
have
do
the.
have that.
You got it.
We have the desert in the south of the map, so maybe like further south. we
Yeah,
have
past the desert, sure.
African empire.
Could be there, could be off to the side.
Mhm.
I would
be a total-
expect it honestly to be off on like another whole separate continent.
Yeah,
I'm
the-
surprised that these are as close as they are.
Mhm.
given
That's
the
really
size of
weird.
the world.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, maybe that just indicates how big this Cycla landmass really is.
Yeah.
But it could, and maybe it's just not to scale. But like they can sail from Teod to Aerolon in just a couple of days, right?
Yeah.
A few weeks, I thought.
I think it's days.
I think Serini was on a ship for a while.
We do know the exact distance, don't we? Like,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess we do. That was kind of a big deal in the end of that point.
We don't just have a rough guess in miles. We have the exact number of footsteps.
1,054,401.
Wait.
1 million.
5. Yeah, I'm gonna do a
1,054,442.
like a little over 1 million steps.
Yeah.
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 That's like 300 kilometers. It's like 200 miles.
It's got to be more than that.
What did you use as a step?
A foot.
Or but
No,
a
it says,
step is like a pace.
It's two.
Yeah.
It's 2 steps.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's double it.
They're not that far. It's
I
a
have a
couple days, I think.
I have a question on this map. You know the Sea of Fjorden?
Mm-hmm.
On this western part that's cut off by the map, do you think this is like landlocked? Or do you think those are just islands and you have to go through this strait and like this northern continent is separate from the southern continent? Because my impression reading Elantris is that you had to sail to Teod, right? So
It could be like an impassable mountain range or something.
Yeah.
Hold up. Where?
it's like by Aralen, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like just northwest of it, there's a few islands.
Yep.
And then the map cuts off. I'm like wondering, does that go to sea on the other side if we just went to the left of that?
Oh, to the west?
Yeah. Yeah, to the west. Yeah.
Hmm.
Or are those two pieces connected?
It does kind of look like they could be connected,
It
right?
looks like they could be, but I never thought the Sea of Fjorden was surrounded by land. I don't know.
If we're talking about the map, can we point out how there's like a landmass covered by the like Sikla sign that extends Svorden?
Yeah, it's really close to Svorden, where the sharks are.
Basically,
Like you could take a rowboat, it looks like, from Svorden to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just shows that this map is not the most accurate map because they do not care about things that are not Fjorden. It's like, let's just put a big flop.
That Fjorden doesn't really have many fjords. Like,
That's disappointing, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
So I'm just wondering if this northern continent is connected or not. I don't know.
Might be.
I just need like a little bit to the west to see.
I feel like it's more like a Mediterranean sort of thing.
Just a few
like,
islands.
Like a Strait of Gibraltar.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I'm hoping.
yeah.
Could be.
But I mean, I guess they always sail to Teod because the Teoish Armada, they got that. Or sorry, Teo Armada. It's not Teoish anymore in the anniversary.
If you
Excuse
were to
me.
walk, like it's still a lot longer to walk there than just sail across.
If you're still listening to this episode, thank you for listening to us blab about Elantris and deep sellish things. Now, granted, there's a lot that I think there's interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff about Cell, and we're gonna get 2 sequels, so I think that'll be really interesting. But
It can be not necessarily challenging, but it could be different. Talking about a world that only has one book essentially versus something like Mistborn or Stormlight
or Roshar, yeah.
so much history, so much world building, so much culture, so much magic.
That's why we're doing 1 episode. Okay, let's maybe talk about these places. Let's maybe talk about that.
Yeah.
Do we want the map still on screen for this?
Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
All right, let's keep the map.
I'm a map guy though. So
where do we want to start? Do we want to start with Aralen, the place that we know the best?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, we kind of already talked that Elantris had an unknown origin, right?
Yeah.
And then the king came. And I just want to say, So if the people were like super wary of the Elantris, and the king like worked really hard to get them to overcome that. But if you come to a land that's totally empty and there's like a giant glowing magical city that's totally abandoned,
Would
just
it be glowing?
waiting there. I mean, I actually don't know if it would be glowing.
Yeah, I don't think it would be glowing.
Why not?
Does it?
Yeah, why
Well,
not?
because the Aeons on there were causing the illumination, right? It wasn't the Aeon Reo itself, I don't think.
And but why shouldn't they have been there already? Like,
No. I think literally the city itself glows.
I
The
don't
only thing that made
remember.
it not glow was the Riode.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But still, this giant abandoned city is just there, and people are like, "No, I don't want to go in that city."
I
It's
mean, that would be
creepy."
pretty
And the king-
spooky.
That would
And
be
the king is like, "Nah, there's nothing creepy about it. We should just embrace
There's nothing
this
creepy
city."
about the weird, empty, glowing city. They'd be like,
There's
no, that's
probably, like-
radiation. We're gonna die. Like, that's not natural.
I
Probably
disagree.
these spirits floating around and stuff like that.
No, I
So,
disagree
yeah.
with all of this. I would totally go in there. What do you like? It's a sci-fi dream come true. Like you are this dumbass nomadic culture or whatever, and you're probably dumm.
If you're part of a nomadic culture, the views of Evgeni don't support the views of 17 Shard or Shardcast. Nomadic cultures are just fine in our book. There's nothing wrong if you are a nomadic traveling culture. Well done.
and you arrive
Thanks
at
for
this-
offending
at-
all
at
of them.
this splendid city full of splendor.
There's probably
like-
Sions floating around too.
Probably
Yeah, right.
songs.
Oh, hi,
It's
welcome.
magical. It's probably full of treasure. It's probably full of technology and knowledge.
Is it though?
Um,
Would it even
I mean-
work if it was made pre the splintering? Like things would be very different though, right?
Okay, maybe it wouldn't have been quite as juiced up, but it's
Yeah.
still an architectural feat.
The power was roaming around for a while and there's just corpses and bones just littered on the street. It'd be like, wow, this place seems
these-
great.
These glowing balls of light who talk and want to be your best
Yeah.
friend and follow you forever.
Yeah, that's like some siren stuff. It's like, oh, they're going to murder me later. They're not. They're very nice, but it's like, hey, I want to be your friend. What's up? What's up? I like how it's Benny's voice. Actually, that's pretty great. That's how they all talk.
I will concede that the corpses are probably a turnoff.
I mean, to most people, Evgeni, to most people.
That seems like an okay point.
I mean, we don't know if there were corpses there, but if
Okay.
the power was roaming around and it was murdered in the conflict with Odium, be like, hey, that spooky glowing place with all the dead people and ghosts. Like, oh, okay, sounds great. Let's go in there. Like, abandoned cities are weird. Haven't you gone
They
by
are.
abandoned buildings? They're kind of creepy.
Yes, but I think there is a big difference between an abandoned building or even an abandoned village or city and like the architectural marvel that must have been Elantris.
But I don't know if it would be an architectural marvel. It would just be like
It's-
the shape of it.
It's still a big ass city.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you went to a place, you'd be like, oh, something horrible happened here. Like, I don't know.
No, so okay, like you go around the countryside or whatever, and you see the Tower of Babel.
Hmm.
Like this is the kind of thing I'm imagining happened there. I mean, obviously, Elantris is not the Tower of Babel, but it's this massive, a little bit towering because the walls are actually
quite tall.
really tall.
Yeah.
Rithuru is the Tower of Babel.
I mean, it really is though.
Yeah.
It legitimately is.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can see why it'd be creepy. Let's move on from this. It's like, yeah, on this episode of Shardcast is like, was ancient Elantris creepy or not? So you decide in the comments below. So yeah, I guess
So
yeah.
it's no surprise that became their capital.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's like at the very edge of Aeolon, and like there's an entire stretch of Aeolon that goes even as far down as Chindo, and they still are at the very top there, or north.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, once you start getting magical powers, and then you're like, oh, cool, this isn't so bad.
The city actually came first, and then as the power of the Elantrians and the influence grew, they were like, we just might as well have our own country as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the NFLs.
Oh yeah, the NFLs. How'd that Super Bowl go? Ha ha! What about your local sports team? You're welcome.
One of those terms that is mentioned literally once. It is once, right?
I think it wouldn't not to go on an Aeonic thing. Wouldn't it be Enifels?
It could be
Yes, it would be.
NAFLs.
No, it would be Enifel.
Isn't E the one where Brandon is like, oh, it's not necessarily an E. It can also be pronounced
It can
A.
arbitrarily not be
Well,
because
But
Brendan
there-
doesn't want it to be.
there would need to be an Aeon in there.
Yeah, and it's
And
Aeon
so-
Eni.
Yeah, we know that's an Aeon.
Uh-huh.
I don't find this.
And Enifels?
Is E-
Don't we have
Yeah, I
that?
don't
the
find
Efel only mentions in the annotations?
No, it's only mentioned in the thing on the Bodilai Aeon thing. Like when he was doing blog posts about the Aeons. Like, this is deep lore here. Like, this is lore that he made for jewelry. Okay? And so let's actually talk about this. So Evgeni was just like, wow, I can't find this anywhere. And it's like, yeah, it's because these Enifels are mentioned in blog posts that Brandon made in 2008 when Bodilai Jewelry started making the Aeon pendants. And this is we actually got a lot of lore from those blog posts about history, like this King Reoshim. We get these terms, the early, middle, and late era of Cell.
Oh, yeah,
what does
the
that
eras,
mean?
That's right.
Yeah, we get a lot of that there. And it's just on blog posts about jewelry. True story.
Okay, so I actually pulled it up. You can find this in Arcanum.
You can.
I don't think you can find them on Brandon's site anymore. Which, good thing we preserved that.
Yeah. It's good thing.
Anyway, so I'm just scanning the one where Brandon talks about Aeon Eni, which represents wit, intelligence, and cleverness.
Yep.
And under the history and use of that, he
Wit killer.
the shape of the Aeon is said to represent two sides of an argument interacting together in different ways. I'm gonna need to reread these because I haven't read them in literally a decade. Anyway,
I know. It's been a hot minute, hasn't it?
History and use. So some scholars have expressed amusement that the symbol should come to mean intelligence in a broad sense, as the classical meaning of Aeon Eni was far more narrow. Eni was the Aeon which represented cleverness, the ability to outwit and outthink opponents. It was often applied in stories and tales to those who had a slyness about them. So like Loki, I imagine. And often
Hoid.
or
Wit.
Hoid.
Wait.
And often was the symbol which represented the trickster figure. Indeed, those who played tricks on others were said to be NFLs, literally wit killers.
Yeah,
Or
literally
those who kill
wit
with
killers.
wit.
Yep.
Why was this relevant?
Because
it is
we were talking
Elantris
about
culture.
deep
Elantris
lore
culture.
of.
Okay.
Well, they were spreading the word of Elantris's marvels. the Enifels, because apparently.
Do we think Hoid helped found them, or was
Sure, why not?
influential?
Sure, maybe.
Well, funny
They're
you
probably
should
set
ask
up to
that
kill him.
because in an AMA on Reddit in 2015, somebody poses the premise that we have seen some Hoid-related groups in the Cosmere. World Bringers on Scadrial, World Singers on Rashar, NFLs on Cell, parentheses, this one is a wild guess. And then they ask if there's one on Altis.
And basically, it's Rapid. Probably because if you're Brandon and you haven't thought about Cell too much in a decade, you might forget the deep. It's like, well, I don't really remember what the early, middle, and late eras of Cell are. Like, I don't remember.
I mean,
Wobs can be contradicted by later
these
books.
eras.
But we don't know anything about the eras.
Well, but we should mention that they are. Like, how much do we not know?
We very little.
Brandon, when asked about it, was unsure when the late era started.
So there is a 2013. God, these Elantris Wobs are gonna kill me.
Old. They're old. They're old, man.
We need a sequel, Brandon. So somebody in 2013 asked, "What defines the early, middle, and late eras on Cell?" Which is a thing that he mentioned in one of those blogs
About jewelry. I was at that con in 2013. SpoCon, yeah.
SpoCon.
I was there.
And so Brandon says, my instinct is, and I could be wrong, that if you were to ask me this right now, what I mean by early, middle, and late eras, it probably has to do with ancient being pre-splintering, not pre-shattering. And then the middle era is during Elantris' Sword of Rain, and then the late era is after the fall. It's probably what I meant.
But that's off the top of my head because I wrote the Aeon Pendant descriptions a long time ago. Yeah, no crap. Deep
Which
lore.
I think is a reasonable way of
Okay.
of
I don't think
splitting.
you'd say the
But-
Rayode 10 years ago. The late era begins, right? Like,
Yeah.
Within the Aeon Eni blog post we just read, it says, by the dawn of the late era, about 2 centuries before the fall of Elantris.
oh, okay, so I guess we do know when that starts.
It's the late era of Elantris. Guess it
2
makes
centuries
sense,
before
sort
the
of.
Book of Elantris.
Okay.
What could have
Uh,
happened to? Is that just based off of Fjordell? It has to be, right?
Well, I mean,
It has to be based off of
these-
like the Fjordell Empire.
these feel very Aurelish sort of
Yeah.
time scales. So, like,
I'm just
Elantris
trying to
didn't
imagine,
even
like-
really care.
Like the Rayode was not worth like defining a new era, but like
Well, that's because they
200 years.
died. To be fair, the people keeping track of the deep history, like, were the Elantrians, presumably, right? The Immortals.
sure.
They died, and so there was kind of other things to worry about at the time. And like, I think you only really name eras in retrospect, right? You don't really name eras as they come. It's like, time to start the calendar again or something. Like, you usually don't do that. It's like naming generations. Like, you only name like, these are the millennials after a while, right?
When a child was born in Bethlehem, better start counting the years anew.
Yeah, right. It makes sense.
I'm just trying to like think of like what kind of momentous thing would have happened that in retrospect would have been like, this is a new era.
well, don't ask Brandon because he
Yeah.
doesn't know.
Maybe it's just like a world hopper or like a Silverlight sort of denomination. Like
I mean,
the last
it
200
could
years
be-
of
Right, so it could be
I guess that's true.
like an in-world, like people kind of keeping track of big events, such as the expansion of the Fjordell Empire, for example, or something like that. Or it could be someone off-world kind of looking in and taking in the development of the entire world after the fact. And going, well, obviously at this point, things started going down.
Yeah, the Fjorden converted to Shudareth 300 years ago. So, I mean, I suppose like 100 years for them to kind of build that up and then maybe start conquering or something.
Let's talk
Should we go
about
to Fjorden? Yeah.
let's talk about Fjorden in a sec.
Yeah.
There's a little more Aurelon and Elantris-y things in that. Well, you kind of got to talk about the religions, right? Because there was Shukeseg, right? The Jindo guy who wanted unity. Just saying. Just saying. You know, there's actually an old wob that I had Josh asked if devotion or if dominion was passion. Actually, that was one of the theories. long ago, so that was kind of amusing. But anyway, so then two of his disciples, Korath and Dareth, they interpreted those meanings differently. And so then you got Shu Korath and Shu Dareth. And the Korathi was more in this Aeonic area and eventually did absorb elements of Elantrian culture, like Aeons and stuff. Mm-hmm. Which I guess makes sense because that was all in their naming structure. Like the language was, determined by the Aeons. Yeah, and Teod was what Shu Korath was. And where do we know about the Airi in this time frame? Airi were Elantrians.
Yeah.
They were.
They were pre-Rayod at some point.
Yes.
And they left before the Rayod, so they didn't.
They are also very old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They literally their name. Yeah. Ancient.
I wanna take a quick look. It affected them in some way, Raffo. The Airi weathered the Rayod.
I guess that does mean that they did leave before the Rayod.
We know that, like, there's a wob on that, I think.
The Airi have been around for a very long time.
Yeah, I don't think we knew much about.
They're very old people.
Okay, so they're pre-Rayod. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, even post-Rayod, there's a lot of time in here.
Yeah.
After the refounding of Elantris for them to be very old by the time we see him in Mistborn. But I do think they're pre-Rayod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like why they weathered it, and they didn't really notice it because they already had the door pipelines going.
Yeah, I guess.
Probably.
Yeah.
That
An
means
interesting wob.
Yeah.
That they are, like, each member of the Airi is really, really old, not just the Airi as an organization.
I mean,
that means they have some way of knowing how to get through the door off of Cell.
Yeah, which is that's a big deal as well.
Well, I mean, apparently you're able to like be like half dead. And so I'm thinking of like whoever what's his face that they dumped into the
Rhino
into the pool, and then he just like apparently like stumbled out, and I don't know. I've always wondered how he got out of there.
Yeah, and there was a while where somebody asked about Sealin, which was the captain, the guard, the Elantrian, who succumbed to the Hoid. Not succumbed, but like became a Hoid. Hoid. And they dumped him in the pool, and he dissolved. And so somebody was wondering, well, if Rhino was able to get out and like go off world, right, and join the Airi, could Sealin also have done that? But that was ruffled.
I mean,
with the thing that each individual member is ancient, I kind of think that the Airi was something that was maybe known pre-Rayod, and then after it, the newly chosen Elantrians just don't know about it, and so they're not really recruiting from any of the new ones.
Or maybe it wasn't a formal group before the Rayod, and like it was just these ancient Elantrians that formed that just like they were together, but they weren't necessarily the Airi, like as a group, if that makes sense. And then after Rayod, others came to them, like, and then they became an organization that sort of also recruited people properly, like maybe.
I don't know. But in scanning through the wobs, I've seen like 4 or 5 where just Brandon goes on how they're very, 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 very old. So like I would not be shocked if they were like, if Brandon wrote a sequel and was like, well, the Airi were the original founders of Elantris, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's totally true though. Sure. Which would be crazy. But and then in Elantris, the Rayod happened and the books occur. So neat. Let's talk about Fjorden. No not enough fjords. 0 out of 10, no fjords in Fjorden.
Yeah, but they are described as sort of imperialistic, monotheistic Vikings. basically. Is what the
Right?
Fjordell
Yeah,
are.
basically. One of the oldest literary works that at least Opalon and Cyclone knows about is Wern the King, which is very old. Was like 4,000 years old?
I don't know a number.
It was old.
Yeah.
And so like Wern existed long before Shu-Korath and Shu-Dereth. And they converted to Shu-Dereth for power. Because there was multiple Fjordell Empires, and this was the third one, wasn't it?
Well, this is the
It's I thought it was the second.
Yeah, the second. That was the old empire.
Oh, the old empire. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And
And they're ruling through religion now, not just direct military strength. Right.
Yeah.
not just.
It is a little more subtle of an empire in some respects.
Oh.
But they started altering the historical records like Wern the King. Jadeth existed before Shu-Dereth as well, and they kind of adopted Jadeth.
This is the wrongest possible way to say that word.
it's
Look.
Yadeth.
Look, I don't care what you say. Why do you think I care what you say?
Like I've heard Yadeth, which I personally subscribe to. I've heard Jadeth, which I think is also okay, but terrible. And you wait for the middle Jadeth, which is just
That's how I've pronounced it since I read Elantris when I was like 15, and you're not going to persuade me any other way, Evgeni.
That is like it's like Yasna.
it's like saying
Yadeth.
Is it like Yasna, though? Do we know that?
Yeah, we have like somewhere, at least the government says that it's pronounced, J is pronounced like
Look, you can't
Y.
trust the pronunciations on the cover mind.
I mean, the
Yes.
entire Fjordell Empire is so like Northern Europe type of culture. Like trust the German on the show.
No.
Jays or Yaz.
No. The cover mind doesn't even say that.
Yeah, it does.
Where?
And at the very bottom of the Fjorden page, and there's a reference to
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not on the
site,
Jadeth
which
page.
isn't working anymore. He killed all the references are dead. I watched his most recent lecture, and he also says to Isaac, like, his essays on like the Sanderson's laws aren't online anymore. We can't find them anymore.
Oh, the languages
Oh, wow,
of Elantris.
really?
Oh, see, if the
Yeah.
languages of Elantris thing is dead, then we don't have to pronounce any of these things this way. Fantastic. So I'm gonna,
Too bad
it's good. It's
Too
good.
bad it's in the web archive.
Oh, well, I don't
I
like
feel
that.
like I could just create a fake reference to like a broken link to put in an old blog post, so people would just be like, "I don't remember that, but I believe that."
It's like, oh, back in
It's
2005.
Not there
In the
anymore.
archive.
I mean, God, I remember the old website, like the old, not the oldest website, but like Gen 2 website with
I
all the
remember
with
that.
all the like the wax kind of
Yeah.
icons, like wax
Okay.
seal looking icons.
Let's talk. Let's get on task.
No.
He says, I added in a Hebrew Y sound in the form of a J, is what he says. And so Jadeth is pronounced Yadeth.
Well,
It's
look,
literally-
I'm the director of my own story, Marvin, as Brandon has also said. And I'm going to pronounce things how I like. And I'm not going to have you convince people of these horrible,
Tell the
horrible
truth.
things. I
Day
guess that
of
does
the
make sense.
Day of the Svrakis.
Yeah. Which is a cool
Oh,
word.
yeah. It is.
Anyway, Yadeth, God,
Thank you.
was said to slumber in the earth, waiting for a time when the whole world worships him to return and rule the world. But he was originally a minor god that cared for rocks under the earth, and then Shu-Dereth kind of grabbed.
I like how each time the Fjordell Empire failed to like conquer everything, their idea of like what the world needs just kind of like shrinks. It's like the entire world, and by that we mean all of Sikla, and by that we mean all of Sikla except Aralon.
Look, the Skazi, they don't care about, such things as maps. They don't need that. It's just what we need.
Did we talk about them? about their role in the
Skazy? We don't really know.
Yeah.
There's a wob, isn't there?
We know that they are at least involved in the
That they're involved. That they're pulling
politics,
strings.
Yeah, they're pulling
We
strings.
did mention that.
Yeah.
Brandon speaks of them as dark scions every now and then, which is, I think, an apt description.
Well, we saw them.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we saw them at the end of the unnamed chapter at the end of the Elantris anniversary, where Hoyd talks to one and tries to get the Teod, and it does not work.
Nope.
Which is awesome, by the way.
I do like that. Like, in retrospect, this is not a shocker at all, right? But the splinters of Iona, the splinters of devotion, are these pure manifestations of love and devotion, right? They are.
Yep.
They just bond with you, and they want to be your buddy, and they're selfless, and they're self-sacrificing, and all of that. And the splinters of Dominion just want to rule the world.
Yep. Running the show. Well, I mean, there was things where Wern like could see the future. He had like access to future sight. Like maybe that was through Skazy, admittedly, right? Like that's totally possible. But like there was this idea, like he sent what? Oh, who the hell's that guy? A Fionn at the end of Elantris. Like this was. She was sent to the Battle of Terrace to like kill someone at the end, and there's like this reference that Wern told him to do this, and very much a future sighty thing.
Yeah,
I don't remember that at all.
no, it's totally in there.
Supposed to assassinate Rathan, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was how he could get admitted to the one monastery that trains assassins.
Rathbor.
Yeah.
Rathbor. Yeah. I'm remembering things. But like there was this idea that Wern could see the future. Maybe it was just because he's using the Skazy to do that, or he had access to other magical powers. We don't know. We'll find out in an Elantris sequel, because there's a lot about Fjordell that we do not know at all. Like the Skazy are just like very not much.
We don't know what Yadeth is either. Do we? Like we don't. Like that's got to be like something, right? Like it's not just totally made up.
So I have a theory about that.
What?
So Yadeth, if that could be like the cognitive aspect of Cell itself, maybe.
Interesting.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, like there's this idea about like the land and the land's like living, and obviously the planet itself would have a cognitive and spiritual aspect. So it could be something like that. Like being affected by the door, and
there's kind of was it Chris or was it the word of Brandon that talked about the door being like a pseudo shard, proto shard type of thing?
Oh, I think that's word of Brandon. Chris didn't talk about that, I don't think. But like the land itself is very important in all these things. So I don't know. I would not be surprised if some point in the Cosmere we like talk to a planet, because that's like a thing that could occur. They have cognitive aspects. There's a bead somewhere in Shadesmar that's like Roshar.
It's going to happen anywhere it's Cell, right?
Right, about land awakening. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
God, it's so weird.
It's super weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it kind of ties into Pagi, right? We would expect something similar there.
Sure.
I mean, it's not terribly different than Sprin on Roshar. Like it would not be that weird if there was like, oh, this is the Sprin of the planet itself.
The Spren of the stone, like Seth talks about that all the time. Morningers talk about that.
The Spren of the stone is actually just Yadeth.
It's a connection I was trying to avoid.
You know, if Trell can be a craftsman and go to Scadrial, then why can't Yadeth go to Roshar?
And that's why Yadeth is pronounced Yadeth. It's because
No, you got it backwards. Elantris is before. This is why the J's on Roshar are
it's deep lore here.
We've also got that connection that Shalash is like, if you can cut it up into aeons as well, and it's like beautiful and things like that as well.
Oh my god. And did you know
It's
Ash
terrible.
fell from the sky in Era 1 Scadrial?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense.
That's how you know the Cosmere is a connected universe.
Yeah.
But, Fjordell has the decor using bones and
Mhm.
I guess
Human
Fjorda shapes.
sacrifices.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Human sacrifices. That stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their bones are shaped like Fjordell runes.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Oh, yeah. It's like this
right.
Fjorden text that's on this map here that's displayed. See? Right? It's like
kind of
that.
like that, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
probably.
in my head, they are always. I mean,
Like Nordic runes.
like Nordic
of them.
runes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like we've all seen and like they're also similar. Like if you're more familiar with Middle Earth than our Earth.
Can you
Everyone
name more
should
Middle
be-
Earth countries than
which
Earth
is
countries?
a valid group of people, by the way, which I used to belong to. The Dwarven runes are
Yeah,
very
yeah,
similar
right.
to
Yeah.
the Nordic ones.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that on the map of Cycla, there are bones around, and actually, if you zoom in, there are symbols. It's kind of the same symbol repeated on the bones. Actually,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's
I
some
still
on the
stand
skull.
by that it looks like an Aeon as well. Like on the bones.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
Not like
the one
actually. an
does on the skulls.
Yeah, the skull is definitely Rayo.
Yeah, the skull
Yeah.
is Aeon Rayo. Yeah. Which is weird, especially so,
The skulls of Elantrians.
No. I have a
that
Shut up.
murdered Elantrians.
Shut up. I have a thought. So the first time I saw these skulls and like realized that there were actually skulls on this map, they made me think of like South American, like Incan, Aztec type of.
They kinda do look like that.
One of these is not South
Yeah.
American, but I'm always terrible with them. Or Mayan.
Yeah,
One of
Middle
these
and
is South American.
If
Yeah.
you're of Mayan and Central or South American descent,
Hit us up because we thought you were extinct.
people of South American descent are extinct.
No, like
No,
mine,
no,
like the people that Columbus wiped out.
I mean, they're not all dead.
Yeah, there's Incan,
They're not.
I think, descendants
Oh,
still.
Well,
Yeah.
good thing
Yeah.
we can get.
If
rid
you're
of
of
that info.
Incan descent, Argent is very offensive, and please send your hate messages on our Discord server at Argent.
Please do. Also, educate me.
Yes,
Anyway,
please
so-
educate him. He needs help.
But yeah, so I'm getting like Crystal Skull vibes out of that,
Oh, great.
and
Yeah.
so in a good way, not in the bad way.
Okay. Where's the fridge?
And oh god, I had lived years without thinking of that scene.
About Indiana Jones going in a lead fridge and it launching across things, and it hits the ground, and then he's fine. Yeah.
For years, I was free of that thing.
You're welcome.
Anyway, but it made me think of, okay, so what if these kind of motifs around the map are meant to represent the three domains?
With an Aeon on the skull.
Well, I mean, granted, it's
Yeah,
not.
It's bones, so it's Fjordish.
No,
It's
but it's-
Rayo, so it's there.
But it's
and
in world. It's in world. It's like a Fjordell map.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they aren't really aware
Yeah.
of this third empire.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm probably
Jordan is.
overthinking this. Yeah,
Yeah, probably.
similar to how we have this woman on the Shadesmar map.
Yeah.
Roshar, which Isaac
Right.
just drew because it was cool.
Cultivation, easy. But obviously the decor magic is more closely tied to Dominion, as you can kind of tell. Scazy influence. I don't know. We'll need to find out. We really don't know a lot of this place, really,
Yeah.
and how it really works. How does Worm
And I mean,
work?
Elantris sequel, I believe, is taking place largely in
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
capital of the empire, I think.
Is it? I
Yeah,
thought
I
they
think
were
so.
going to
Sworden, I thought as well, like to the university, but I'm not sure. Or at least one of them
Yeah.
went to Sworden, and one was a diplomat or something like that. I don't.
I'm pretty sure it's the capital.
I thought it was the capital
Okay.
too.
Definitely on a diplomatic mission, I think. Like,
I think the capital is Wern's seat.
Ah,
Probably
great. That'll
was,
be easy to write about. It's
Yeah.
like And then we arrived in Wern's seat.
No, it actually has a name. It actually has a name, I think.
Yeah, it's Wern's seat.
Yeah, something with W. No. Something
Wolfden. The capital is Wydor. Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's not even...
Why door?
Widor? Whatever. What? Shut up, guys.
No, I'm not complaining. I just find it amusing that it's like, why the door?
Why the door? That's how
That's not even on the map.
No, it's not, but it's mentioned in the glossaries. Also deep lore. Yeah. Yeah, it's in the Elantris glossary.
Why is the map of this empire not on the map? The capital, the map.
Well, presumably,
map.
like, Wern's seat is that.
Yeah.
It's got like a second name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a
They
local name.
specifically marked where Wern's throne sits, and like everybody
Specifically.
knows where the capital is.
He actually sits in a throne the size of a city.
Yeah, it's so big. But is it a creepy city or not? Like, we need to know. If you saw the city and it was abandoned, would it be creepy?
All the corpses sacrificed by the Dark
Yeah,
Lord
sure, why not?
Emperors,
Yeah, it would be creepy.
It's a giant seat that he sits on, but also it's a giant building that people live in.
Yeah.
I think we have left the rails.
Let's talk about other countries in the Fjordell Empire. We got Svorden, a place of knowledge and shark fighting.
There it
I
is.
like Jordan.
We did it.
They are known for their universities, their culture. There was a bit about how some Svordish scientists thought that people can only learn 6 languages, like that. Like you can't learn more. There were a couple of like discoveries that were mentioned, or maybe not discoveries at the time, but like ideas proposed by Svordish scientists that we recognize as true, objectively, but to people in world they were like new things,
Right.
and so it sounds like a cool place.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Svorden is interesting because compared to seemingly the other countries taken over by Fjordell, they have a very friendly relationship.
Yeah.
And it seems almost like maybe that the initial Svorden was almost a willing thing where they willingly joined.
Yeah.
That's just speculation on my part, but
They've also maintained most of their culture. Like a lot of the other places are basically Fjordell now, and Svorden still has its own language and own culture, like this shark fighting.
I do wonder if it was more of an active decision on Fjorden, where they were like, there are smart people in there. We don't want to like, we want that. We don't want the land. We want the smart people. So we're going to absorb that in the empire, and we'll just let them do their own thing, and they will be like a sovereign nation.
I always thought it was interesting that, I don't know, there's several characters that are very familiar with the country, and that Lukel's wife is from there.
Yep.
But they still have a very negative view of Fjorden, and that's always struck me as kind of odd that it's like, oh, we went to like the university there and everything that's inside the empire, but they were still very opposed to the empire coming in.
I mean, on the map, you still see that Fjorden has like forts on the border to Svorden. So like maybe the subjugation is more tenuous than than Cyclop or Fjorden portrays it. Maybe like
so. On this point, Josh, I think this mimics a lot of what happens in like Earth history. So I suck at history, but the country I'm from has spent like a grand total of like 7 centuries being subjugated by a neighboring country. So first the Byzantine Empire, and later by the Ottoman Empire. And during a lot of that time, people from my country, people from Bulgaria would, like wealthy people, mind you, would go to those dominating empires, learn from, study in universities and whatnot, come back. And so like you have this exact kind of relationship where you go to the place where the knowledge is and where the power is, and then you come back and you still resent the Empire because they're doing like they've taken over, right?
Right.
But that doesn't stop you from recognizing that this is where the good stuff is.
Sure. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We got other places. We have Jador, Yador, whatever.
Whatever.
Probably Chador, because like it's Chindo in
I don't know.
feel strongly
I don't know.
about
I
that
don't
at
know
all.
how I'm supposed
Yeah.
to pronounce J's anymore on any of these things. So
Keeps you guessing.
I think the Chindo are pronounced Chindo and the Chado are ethnically Chindo, so it also is Chado.
Maybe it's a little bit of
But
both.
yeah.
Giador.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they even mentioned in the books? I don't know.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
They developed the sword that they
Yeah, the sword. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
that they fence with.
Yep.
It's
Mhm.
really important stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Then we have Hragan, which I think there's Hraga Schweed soup, so that's exciting. So, you're just learning all sorts of things. Now, there's one interesting one. Hravel, where Fortin makes potions and the poisons and stuff. And that stuff's kind of freaking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, if you don't remember, is the guy that Hrathen spoke with through a Seon rather, to get the potion that would make him and Sereni look like Elantrians.
Yeah. It's like, there's probably some magical stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Didn't Brandon talk about a magic system on Cell that had to do with like cocktails or
I don't know,
mixing
sounds
drinks?
great. It's like, you access the
It's
door,
one of them.
various
I mean-
bartending abilities.
I mean, how do you think we get the Jager bomb?
During the day, Fortin is a barkeeper, and in the evenings, he does his potions. Or the other
Oh
way
no,
around.
we have one in 2016 that says are Fortin's potions magical? And Brandon says they are invested magical.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are.
I think a common theory is like that the motions you do when stirring the potion sort of have to resemble Hravel.
Oh sure, why not? Yeah,
landscapes.
yeah, right, of course.
Yeah, that's like
What?
what I have heard a lot. Yeah, it's not confirmed.
How
but
often
it's
have
like
you
a
heard
common thing.
this? It's like, oh yeah, the theory about Raffle. Yeah. I hear it all the time, every day.
When it comes up, it generally this like what else would there be that you could influence in a potion that is connected to the landscape?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's
The specific ingredients probably have to come from there, maybe, but yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. That's so interesting.
Maybe you have to like, as you were, so you brew the potion just fine, and then as you're bottling it, it has like, you have to drive it through this like glass containers that are shaped in a specific way, and so the potion moves along a specific path, and like that, like a centrifuge a little bit, and that picks up investiture for whatever reason, because Cell.
I think stirring motions are a little easier, but
I
I mean, that's convenient in a nation that's almost like a circle.
yeah. And Hravel is, I'm just going to ignore that, is very isolated, and there's not many Derethi priests there, so it's kind of the backwaters. And then there's, oh god, Gaunt, sure, whatever. And nothing
Giants.
interesting is there. And other than the city of Velf, I guess, which is an amazing name. Velf. And nothing really interesting. They speak Fjordell. So neat. Cool.
So this is
also
not necessarily specifically related to any one country, but there's also the Yesker.
Oh, the
Yeskeri mysteries or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
They are an interesting thing.
see, I always said Jesker. I don't know.
I'm okay with Jesker.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I
great.
do Jesker.
I'm glad. But
I prefer Jesker, but I will accept this.
well, because Jesker was one of the most ancient religions on,
Mhm.
at least on Cycla, right? And they
Yeah.
talked about the door. So that a lot of that really old stuff that Galadon was talking about was Jesker, and that kind of was destroyed when Duladel was overthrown, right?
Let's do a quick copper mind.
Oh, I don't think the Jesker article's very good.
No, it looks good.
I
It
guess.
looks the Jesker
I mean,
article,
I guess-
you reviewed it.
I guess I reviewed it, so I guess it's
Yikes.
okay.
In 2018.
In 2018. I gotta add to that Hravel article, though.
But the top quote of the article is a quote from Galadon,
Mm-hmm.
who explains to Raoden the door,
Mm-hmm.
and cites that Jesker teaches that only humans have the ability or the curse of being oblivious to the door. What's the context of that?
I don't know. But Jesker involves spirits, and the door is the over spirit.
The over spirit.
Like, isn't that crazy?
That is so extra.
I know.
And then the Jeskeri mysteries are some cult that is inspired by the Jesker,
Yeah.
but Galadon thinks they're trash.
Yeah. And I guess maybe there's some
They also
Dominion
introduce human
influence there.
sacrifice, yeah.
Like some human sacrifice to try and like influence the door. That's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah, it's the human sacrifice. So I've never. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird in this, but I don't think about human sacrifice a lot.
That's good. I'm glad.
But now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if there are some residual pieces of knowledge in the Jeskeri mysteries that share history with the monasteries, the Fjordell monasteries, and so like you get this human sacrifice common theme that runs in both a little bit. And so like there's a grain of truth to, hey, if you kill humans, you can get power.
Yeah.
But the mysteries just completely get the idea wrong.
Yeah, and like there's something to the door, but like you're not influencing it
Yeah.
really here. So I don't know. There's a lot of Fjorden that we still have to learn.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about the Rose Empire, but we really don't know that much about it either.
Yeah.
All things
We
considered.
didn't talk about the Jindo at all, and we at least know they also have.
Oh, the Jindo.
Magic.
Yeah, the Jindo
Yeah.
was where Shukessig was from.
Yeah.
And they have a way of accessing the door,
Yep, the Cheshan
Yeah.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
which is weird.
which is weird. All of this stuff is very weird.
Most of them
Like
are.
they're doing this kata type thing, and like I guess the shapes that they make and the motions that they go through infuse their bodies with the door. Because like
Oh, they actually invest
Shouldn't.
their body?
right. Like Shuden
Fuses the Roshar.
was doing these like super powerful punches and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super weird. But I guess the Rose Empire, they have aromatics, a lot of it. Or at least the Forgers do.
Yeah, the Grands didn't seem. They thought it's weird.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that the magic users would understand the magic concepts better, right?
Yeah.
The Forgers, because they're actually influencing those things. Whereas if you didn't have those and you thought that was forgery was heresy, you'd think they're full of crap, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. But like this is a huge domain that we know so little about. Give us this Emperor's Soul sequel, Brandon. Like that's kind of neat to think about. But I also don't want you to ruin Emperor's Soul.
God, there's so much depth
Emperor's
to-
New Soul.
to
To Emperor, to Soul.
to everything that Brandon writes. Like we have Elantris and we have the Emperor's Soul, and with as little as we know about so many of these places, there are hints at such depth in all of them that like I can see, like a 5-book series that easily has enough material and enough world building to cover all of that.
I mean, we don't know where the third Elantris book will be set, presumably somewhere else. And so, who knows?
Yeah.
It's impossible to
Probably
know.
in the Third Empire.
Maybe I would hope we would see the Third Empire. And speaking of the Third Empire, I mean, we really talked about all we know. It's like
Yeah.
it's it's not Europe and it's not Asia, so I'm gonna go with Africa.
Yep.
Antarctica.
Yes, the Antarctican Empire.
No, it's the Australian domain.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Ruled by sapient penguins.
The Antarctican domain, of course.
Yes.
The godlike penguins. Can you just imagine like a shard, like Odium, just appearing as like a godlike penguin?
Oh God.
Can someone
We
make a
get-
fan art of that?
We get
White and
there
gold.
and there's just like a research center with Chris taking notes on the magic.
Yeah.
Oh please.
I'm into this. Let's do this. You know, we should probably do like a podcast on Elantrian magics or Celish magics because we wanted to do more history and culture here. But like, there's a lot of detail on Dakor that I don't think we've ever talked about on the show.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk about that, and maybe we should read Elantris before we do.
Yeah, that's the thing that we need to do.
We should probably do that. But like, there's a lot of Celish magic systems. There's a lot going on here. It's a big place.
Yeah.
One of the bigger places.
Like I was as I was prepping for this, it struck me that we don't really understand anything about the Teod.
Yeah.
Like, it's a thing
Yeah.
that happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
And we know that it's caused by Elantris, like by the city. It's a mechanism of the city.
Let's.
I mean, we know a couple of things, but it's
Yeah, but that's about it. Yeah.
sounds like we have enough for maybe one or two podcasts, to be honest, on Celish magics. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it'd be helpful if we read it in the last 5 years.
we'll do that.
And maybe these glossaries and languages and just this random stuff on Brandon's website that are now mostly broken. Any other thoughts, guys, on history, culture, and stuff? Did you like my intro about sharks? It was very important to this show.
Very much.
I mean,
It was so important.
Just want to say the name of the one Fragan city, Gmordzom. I like it a lot. Like
Oh, God.
Gmordzom.
yeah, as you do. I personally like on the map the big thing Fjorden on that plateau of mountains or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, sure.
Those are very strangely shaped mountains.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this one. Let's go on to who's that Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Braze.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for who's that Cosmere character? Caw.
All right, listeners, you know how the game is played. You send an email to wtcc@17shard.com with 5 clues and a character that those clues correspond to. I read each clue aloud on air, and after each one, our contestants have the chance to guess who's that Cosmere character.
Are they all going to be Celish? Are we only going to think of Celish things?
Yikes.
Or will it be Roshar
Definitely some
again?
cell,
The
Oh,
first
don't
one
be silly.
was sent in by Fire Moss.
Don't be a sell out.
Clue 1. This character was born into a cult.
Don't tell me what to do.
Is it Teft?
It is Teft.
I was gonna. Yeah.
Easy. All right. We're cruising. All right.
See,
easy.
I was gonna guess theft, and I sacrificed my guess so I can make a
Yeah.
pun.
I was going to think about the just scary mysteries. But
There's not that many people that are born into cults in the Cosmere.
Yeah.
yeah. What were the other clues?
I
Great.
remember
Easy.
the
The
We're,
other clues are this clue 2. This character used to be a sergeant. Clue 3. This was the first to believe Kaladin could inhale stormlight.
all right.
The clue 4. This character believes he is inadequate and unworthy. Clue 5. This character is a Knight Radiant.
See, you should have led with that
It's-
fourth one.
It's quite appropriate that Firemos sent it in.
It is very appropriate that Firemos.
All right.
You know,
next.
we have a what's that Cosmere location?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Is it going to be Cell? Because I got that map right here.
It's
We
Jama.
probably should close that map, I guess. huh?
Morden.
Yeah.
Mordzen.
All right.
Wydor. That's what Warren Seed is. Let's just guess.
It
All
can
right.
be a planet, country, town, notable structure, or anything in between.
Oh, God.
All right.
So
All
this-
right.
This was sent in by Adam Baker.
Okay.
Interesting.
Clue 1. This location is not a country.
Oh well.
Wydor, we're in seat.
No, it is not Wydor.
The Palaneum.
It is not the Palaneum.
The entire planet of Cell.
It is not the planet Cell.
Is it Stormseed?
It is not Stormseed.
This is fun. I like this.
I love this already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clue 2. This location has been visited at least once on screen.
Okay.
The entire planet of Scadrial.
The entire planet of Scadrial.
So you're doing planets. I'm gonna do buildings and guess the Kolinar Palace.
It is not the Kolinar Palace.
Is it? I don't know the name of the. Is it the Reshi Island, like the giant?
Taina.
Yeah, Taina.
It is not the Reshi Island.
Was it viewed once on screen or twice on screen?
Visited at least once.
At least once. Okay.
In other words, we've visited this place.
There's a lot of options here.
It at least rules out a lot of the Fjordish places because.
Yeah, it does. I'm like, okay, it's not Elantris.
Okay, this map is useless now.
Yeah. I'm going to say Keep Venture.
It is not Keep Venture.
Bold, not going to Roshar.
I know.
Clue 3. This location is in a major city.
Is it Credit Shaw?
It is Creditshaw.
What?
Wow.
What? Marvin just slaying us today.
Thanks.
So close, Eric. You were like 2 buildings away.
I know. I was close.
Got the right planet.
Yeah. And
Eventually.
right era.
And I was thinking palaces.
Oh.
Buildings, brother.
Clue 4 is that this location was the residence of a lord. Clue 5, the lord mentioned previously was a main antagonist.
Interesting.
There you go.
Good. I really like that. Well done. I like that.
I
That
like
could
that.
technically have gone towards like White Sand or something, like one of the.
Oh, great. One of the
like,
buildings there.
yeah.
Fantastic. If you want to stump us, send us Taldane things like that.
Ah, yes, the helm.
Yes, the helm. That place that they went to on that ship ride that one time in volume 3.
No, the helm is-
Lazare?
Larzare. Can I say, okay, so this was a Cell podcast, so we're going to talk about names. So, Brandon, putting L and R next to each other at the beginning of a name, it just doesn't work.
It does.
Where
though.
does he do that?
Yeah. The name of that place is
It's pretty awful.
Is it
Some
Li-
languages are
Lilithara?
vowels.
I thought
Wow,
it was
I
just
kind of
Lisa.
forgot how crazy this was spelled. It's
Lilithara.
Lraeezare. Like, whoa, that's a lot of vowels.
I think one of the E's might be extra. I need to double check.
No,
that.
it's not. I just looked on the map.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It's
But
terrible.
I feel like it wasn't in White Sand Volume 3. I don't think it was spelled with that. Oh, hi, you're green.
Hi, I'm green. Don't worry about it.
It's Ian.
Hey, it's Bruce Banner.
Hulk smash.
He's
Yeah,
really
I feel
angry
like
about
in
this language.
I don't remember. Anyway, that's fun. But
Oh,
what if we end this?
Sure.
Please.
Thank you guys for listening to this thing that we just made. If you want to see more things that we made, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can leave us a review on iTunes, and if you want more nebulously good episodes, then you can support us on Patreon, I guess. But I hope that you were reminded about what's going on Cell.
Or what could
A
go
lot.
on. Or what could go on.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it will be exciting to see more what's going on, because we've only got one hint of it.
And
Let's wait for the next episode where we explain the exact mechanics of shark fights in Svorden.
Yeah.
We did not talk about shark fighting at all.
That's definitely their magic system, right?
Oh yeah. Nailed it. Hashtag nailed it. Maybe Brandon can make it a magic system where he has sharks with frickin' laser beams. It's like that. You can do that. You do that.
Would, I mean,
The symbols
making
on the
some
sharks.
patterns.
You
It
tattoo
depends on
the
the
shark.
height-based magic system.
A height-based magic system.
Kite.
Oh, kite.
Kite based.
Yeah.
Argent.
I thought you were saying height-based.
That
heard
would
height
fit
too.
Cell. That would fit Cell, I guess. Like they would fly the kites in a certain pattern, and then something happens.
Sure, why not? How do you do that from their perspective of just like, yes, I hope the wind goes in this certain direction or else I'm completely screwed. Must be pretty hard to train in that magic system. You must become the wind.
You
or
must be
something.
devoted to it.
Yeah, you gotta
And
be
not
really
give
devoted
up.
to the wind. You
Well,
can't
you can
try and
also
control
dominate
the
it.
wind. You
Yeah,
can't control
to
the
dominate
wind.
the wind.
You know, you can't dominate the wind. The wind dominates
No.
you.
If you blow hard enough, you can.
All right, we're done. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, good.
Cheers.
Bye.
Caw.